Hello everyone, my name is Andrea Tooley. Thank you so much for watching this video. Today I'm going to do something totally random. I'm a little bit nervous about it, but I thought it would be really fun to look back in my archives and find my personal statement that I wrote in my application for medical school, residency, and fellowship and read them to you and react to them here today. So I had to go through two external hard drives to find my med school personal statement, but I found it. I have not read it. I vaguely remember what I wrote, but I have not read it, so this is going to be a complete reaction to what I wrote back in 2009 when I was applying to medical school. I also haven't read my residency personal statement or my fellowship since I wrote them. I think they're quite similar. Definitely my residency and my fellowship personal statement are very similar. But anyways, I'm going to read them for you here today. I think that my medical school essay is going to be quite cringeworthy. It's so hard not to write a personal statement and just exude all this passion and drive for how you want to be a doctor and help people and go to medical school. But I think on the back end, I'm going to find it fairly cringeworthy. So anyways, I have my coffee here. I have my laptop here. I'm going to pull up both of these documents, all three of these documents, and read them for you now. So we're going to go for this together, and don't judge me. I'm sure this is going to be very embarrassing for everyone. So cheers. Alright, so for those of you who don't know, I am an ophthalmologist. I'm currently completing my fellowship in ophthalmic plastics and reconstructive surgery, which is a fellowship within ophthalmology, and so I do plastic surgery around the eyes and the face. I also do reconstruction of the orbit, the eye socket, all kinds of really fun things. I have videos about what I'm doing in fellowship. And I went to Indiana University for medical school. I applied early decision, so I only applied to IU. I didn't apply to other medical schools, but that's what I did. And then I applied to a ton of residency programs, maybe like 80, 90, 100. I can't quite remember. Okay, so let's just get going. Woo! Okay, so this is med school Andrea's personal statement. I actually have two versions here, and I don't know which is the most accurate. Maybe this one. I didn't want to read them. One has some comments in it, like some track changes. Okay, so we're just going to read this one, and I'll stop and comment and give you my embarrassing moments here as we go through it. Okay, ready? Here we go. How long does it take to realize that something has been a defining moment in your life? 10 years? 10 minutes? How long does it take an inconsequential conversation to come full circle and you know it has inevitably changed your life? A defining conversation in my life happened on a rainy day at the Evansville airport. A student pilot, I was waiting for the weather to clear before I could practice S-turns and short field landings. Sitting next to me was a commercial pilot also waiting for the pavement to dry before he would take off to meet a 737 jet that housed an operating room. The pilot told me about the plane and the organization it belonged to, Orbis International, a nonprofit with the mission of saving sight worldwide. By converting an airplane into an operating room, Orbis ophthalmologists are able to travel the globe, performing surgeries and training local physicians in new procedures. I don't remember the drive home from the airport that day, but I vividly remember sitting in front of my computer looking at the Orbis website. Even as a junior in high school, I felt medicine was my future, but at this time had only shadowed a few physicians and knew nothing about global health. Okay, so that's my intro paragraph. I think it's fairly interesting. My first sentence is pretty cheesy. The like 10 years, 10 minutes, a little cheesy. But the point of the first sentence and the first paragraph is that you want to captivate the reader and make them want to continue reading. So I think talking about how I was flying airplanes and a junior in high school and then I found out about Orbis is fairly interesting. So let's keep going. I think it gets worse. It only took 10 minutes to understand that Orbis would change me. Global healthcare was a new concept to me, and seeing images from various trips across the globe left me feeling naive. These images of physicians working in developing countries was what initially struck me. When I thought of medicine before, I had pictured glamorous private practices and bright, clean hospitals. Oh, I can't believe I said that. That sounds bad. Oh, man. Now I was seeing children from Ethiopia smiling because their sister received a corneal transplant, a young African man walking to the plane with an eye patch knowing he will read again. A dream of experiencing new cultures while practicing medicine for those in need started to form. I feel like that I was just so young. It seems like someone very young writing this. Okay, continuing. Determined to get involved, I contacted Orbis, and after innumerable phone calls, emails, and 6 months of waiting, was permitted to join the plane in Chiclayo, Peru. I was 17, knew nothing about ophthalmology, and spoke no Spanish, but was determined to prove my presence there was an asset to the team. I spent days in the clinic helping patients fill out paperwork and put on wristbands, wondering if I was making a difference. In countries with so much need, can a handful of people significantly contribute? I was snapped out of my reverie by a woman grabbing my wrist. She was blind in both eyes due to cataracts and couldn't work to support her family. After signing forms at my station, she was going into surgery. "Thank you," she said in broken English, which I knew she did not speak fluently. That was it. Those 2 words solidified everything I thought the trip was about. If only one person was helped in response to this trip, it was a success. This summer, I'm working in a hospital in Tanzania, and I can only hope I will make a difference in one person's life and hear those 2 words again. So cheesy. So cheesy. But, I mean, it's a good story, so I'm sharing my experience from Peru as I was helping. I think it shows that what you want to do is through these personal stories, you want to show personal characteristics and traits that you have that you feel the admissions committee will think will make you a good doctor. So I wanted to show that I had drive and I was passionate and I had a good reason for wanting to be in medicine, that also I was self-directed, I was motivated, I kind of set up this whole thing with Orbis all by myself. And yeah, so I think that's what I was going for. I need a sip of coffee. Okay. Alright, I think this is where it gets pretty cheesy. Thinking about how accidental my meeting was with the pilot that led me to Orbis helps me remember to push myself. If I hadn't flown that day or hadn't put the effort into looking up Orbis on the computer, I might not be on the path I am today. I understand that however serendipitous, one small moment can affect your life instantly or years later. That is so true, and I still believe that today. If you are doing everything you can every single day, say yes to opportunities, if you're putting in 100% and working as hard as you can, then good things will come back to you. So many good things will come back to you. Okay, here we go. 10 years before I met the Orbis physicians, I was a little girl clad in pink tights, cautiously stepping into the studio of a famous jazz dancer, Luigi. Luigi was building his career as a performer when a car accident left half his body paralyzed. This is true. The prognosis was that Luigi would never walk again. In spite of his doctors, he conditioned his body back to strength through dancing. That day in class, he told me his secret: never stop moving. That's in quotes. It applies not only to his dancing, but to his life. Years later, I finally see how much weight that simple phrase holds. At the time, it meant nothing more than to keep your body in motion. As I envision myself in medical school, it means push the limits. How can you know your own potential until you've tried? From shadowing physicians to majoring in literature, pushing myself and putting my heart into each day has made all the difference. Luigi pushed himself despite what doctors told him, and I can only hope to be a physician who will encourage my patients to never give up. As a student, never stop moving means never stop learning. In my undergraduate career, learning about myself has helped me make decisions about my future. Learning to balance school and extracurriculars has been a huge factor over the past few years. Now I understand the balance I require. I can apply that to my journey to medical school. I feel like that story was pretty cheesy, but not as bad as I remembered. I still really like the sentiment, and I still think it shows my personality and who I am as a person. I think that what I should have done is use this opportunity in the personal statement to talk about more things from my resume. So I should have put how I push myself in the lab to do research that I was uncomfortable and learning new techniques like PCR or whatever, or I pushed myself to major, and I briefly mentioned that I majored in English, but that I was outside of my comfort to read new poetry and analyze Milton or whatever. I think that this would have been a great paragraph to be more specific. I think this is a little bit too broad, and I see that in a lot of personal statements where you just say a bunch of general fluff, and at the end of the day it doesn't mean anything. So you really have to bring it back to who you are, what you've done, and kind of connect the two. I think if I had done that, it would have been better. Okay, this is the last paragraph. The past has given me defining moments, and whether they took me 10 minutes or 10 years to acknowledge, they've shaped me into who I am today. My experience with Orbis has given me an understanding for just how far medicine can go. A simple surgery can give someone their sight back and ultimately a new life. Because of my experience in Peru, I know I will continue to push my limits and volunteer abroad. Having this goal will motivate me through medical school and keep me inspired to never stop moving. So in my last paragraph, I really tied it all back together. I did the 10 minutes, 10 seconds thing, kind of brought that back together, the never stop moving, brought that back together. I think if I really wanted it to be more strong, I could have said, this is why I will be a great physician. I think it's really important to say, this is who I am, this is what I've done, and X, Y, and Z will make me an excellent physician. I think that really could have brought it all home, but alas. So anyways, okay, that was my med school personal statement. It wasn't quite as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I think it's a reasonable personal statement. I don't think it's anything special. And I say this about personal statements all the time. At the end of the day, they can hurt you if they're bad, and they can help you if they're extraordinary. But I think for the most part, they're gonna be kind of neutral. And if you're lucky, you have a really fantastic story to tell. But for a lot of people, you just kind of tell what you are, who you've done, what have been defining moments in your life, even if they seem very simple. Like this, I made a dance class that I took when I was a little girl, a defining moment in my life, and that's not very special. But you take who you are and then you spin it into why you're gonna be a good doctor and what you've done going forward. So that's what I did. That was my personal statement from med school. Let's move on to residency personal statement. All right, guys, moving on to residency personal statement. You're gonna see that all three of these personal statements are very similar, mainly because what I've said a bunch of times on my blog and in videos before is that my experience flying airplanes and then getting involved with Orbis is really what set me on my path to medicine and what made me choose ophthalmology. And so that's a huge theme in all of my personal statements. So you're gonna see that in all of them. Also, I don't fly anymore, but I did fly in high school and a little in college. I stopped flying in medical school, but that was something very unique and special and memorable about me, and so I took advantage of that and wrote about how I had my pilot's license in all my essays. All right, here we go, residency personal statement. My path to ophthalmology began on a rainy day in Evansville, Indiana in 2005. I was training for my private pilot's license and had gone to the airport to practice some touch and goes. I think I changed what I was practicing from my personal statement to from my med school to my residency personal statement, but whatever, it doesn't matter. I was practicing all those things. It was raining, and I, an eager 16-year-old, was just slightly reluctant to fly by myself in questionable weather. So there I sat in the airport waiting for the rain to subside. Sitting next to me was another pilot, and we began chatting. When I confessed my interest in going to medical school to become a physician, he proceeded to tell me about an organization he had worked with in the past, Orbis International. That night I spent hours on the computer scrolling through the pages of the Orbis website. I knew nothing of ophthalmology at the time, but seeing images of young children in eye patches, elderly women with newfound sight, and physicians from all over the world working together to save sight opened a door that I have never since closed. It took 6 months of me repeatedly emailing and writing Orbis, begging to be allowed to accompany the plane on a mission. At that time, Orbis did not accept non-professional volunteers, especially high school students with no training in medicine. My persistence and dedication were rewarded in January 2006. I was granted permission to spend 10 days in Peru with Orbis as the only student to travel with the organization. Those 10 days on the Orbis plane, time with Peruvian patients, and conversations with ophthalmologists on the mission solidified my desire to become a physician and set me on my path to ophthalmology. Okay, so similar intro. I think it's an interesting intro. I think that here I'm applying some of those principles where I'm throwing in some more direct statement of my personal characteristics. So I say my persistence and dedication. And so I think it's important to kind of point those out, point your qualities and things that will make you a great resident or physician or whatever in your personal statement. Okay, so let's continue. My experience in Peru ignited a passion in me for traveling and serving those in developing nations. In college, I was able to visit Arusha, Tanzania to volunteer in the surgical unit of Mount Meru Hospital. In medical school, I became involved with a student-run organization called Medical Missions and helped plan our first trip to Vietnam. Since then, the group has returned to Vietnam 3 times. Recently, I accepted the challenge of helping the underserved in Indianapolis to receive eye care by opening a monthly clinic for screening eye exams, refraction, and free glasses. These experiences have all required self-motivation and determination, but the rewards are beyond compare. Perhaps this is a common characteristic among all medical students, but a defining quality of mine, and one I think has brought me to this point in my life, is the love of a challenge. I find I am the type of person drawn to something not because it is easy, but because it is hard. Pursuing a pilot's license at age 15, at the time, a seemingly insurmountable challenge. Many concepts were over my head and difficult to grasp, but just before my 18th birthday, I passed my exam and was officially a private pilot. The challenge of traveling with Orbis as their first and only student taught me to never give up. Throughout medical school, my interest in ophthalmology has never wavered, largely because the challenge of ophthalmology draws me to the field. Intricate surgeries in the eye, precise clinical exams, and the fine details of ophthalmology propose an immense challenge to the learner. It is a challenge that excites me more each day. So I actually like what I did here. I like that I say, I love a challenge, I love to work hard and never stop learning, and then I tied it into ophthalmology, like the intricate surgeries and clinical exam. Like, that's why I love ophthalmology, because at the end of the day, the people reading your applications, they want to know, who are you? Why do you want to go to medical school? Or why do you want to be a cardiologist, a nephrologist, a gastroenterologist, or whatever? And if you really don't have a good reason for that, it's not going to be a strong essay. And so it's good to say, this is who I am, these are my characteristics, and those characteristics are also in this field, and that's why I want to be in this field. Okay. All right. In conclusion, here we go. In the future, I know my love of a challenge will help me to never stop learning, to advocate for my patients, and to excel as a physician. To me, an ophthalmologist should possess many qualities, most notably a love for the field, a dedication to patients, and a hunger for knowledge. I believe I have these qualities as demonstrated through my passion for international work with organizations such as Orbis, my commitment to helping patients, and my love of the challenge of learning, be it medicine, aviation, or international cultures. I look forward to accepting the challenge of a residency and career in ophthalmology. I think that's a strong ending. I think that's a pretty good ending. There were like 100 commas in that conclusion. Like every sentence had a triplet. You know, my commitment to helping patients, my love of a challenge, be it medicine, aviation, or culture. I'll never stop learning, advocating for my patients, and excelling as a physician. There are just too many things. So if I could do it all over again, I'd probably clean that up a little bit, but I do like the last sentence. I look forward to accepting the challenge of a residency and career in ophthalmology. I think that's strong. It shows I'm gonna be an ophthalmologist, but it's also humble. We know it's gonna be a challenge. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with this personal statement. Again, I don't think it's anything like mind-blowing, but I think it's acceptable. All right, last one, fellowship, personal statement. I actually think my fellowship personal statement is fairly similar to my residency personal statement, with just a few things changed in there. So here we go. They all start out exactly the same. I think all three of them have the exact same first paragraph, so I apologize. Here we go, fellowship. I was introduced to the field of ophthalmology accidentally on a stormy day in Evansville, Indiana when I was 16 years old. I was training for my private pilot's license and had gone to the airport to practice, but was reluctant to fly solo in questionable weather. As I sat in the airport waiting for the rain to subside, I started chatting with a commercial pilot sitting next to me. He was waiting for the storm to pass before flying cross country to meet a 737 jet that housed an operating room. The pilot told me about the plane and the organization it belonged to, Orbis International, a nonprofit with the mission of saving sight worldwide. Okay, so that first paragraph is just a little different in each one, but it's basically saying the same thing. After that serendipitous introduction, I contacted Orbis and swayed them to allow a high school student to participate in one of their missions for the first time. In 2006, I joined Orbis on a trip to Peru, which solidified my career goal to become an ophthalmologist. Now, 10 years later, I am delighted to be applying for a fellowship in ophthalmic plastics and reconstructive surgery. My first so now I have to change this where I actually start talking about oculoplastics instead of just ophthalmology. My first exposure to oculoplastic surgery was on board the Flying Eye Hospital in Peru, but it was not until my first rotation in residency that I realized my love for the field. I was initially drawn to ophthalmology because of the highly intricate surgeries, fascinating technology, and extraordinary impact on a patient's quality of life. Oculoplastics adds an element of applied anatomy and surgical creativity missing from intraocular surgery, as well as an extensive repertoire of procedures. There are immense opportunities for research in the field, which I believe can change clinical practice. I am interested in investigating molecular means to treat orbital disease and using technology to advance surgical techniques. So I say why I like oculoplastics, what I want to do with oculoplastics, my goals, whatever. Okay. In addition to surgery and research, education is another true passion of mine. I transitioned from teaching my peers in small study groups in college to teaching MCAT classes and mentoring younger medical students. Now I reach a worldwide audience through my YouTube channel with over 2.5 million views. The channel has become a resource for pre-medical and medical students, and I envision it growing into a comprehensive space for those interested in healthcare. I interview physicians in other medical specialties to introduce students to the many facets of medicine and to pass along their advice to those on the pre-health track, while also motivating students and sharing study tips. My videos have connected me to an overwhelming number of students all over the world. I'm extremely gratified by the feedback I get from the viewers and the knowledge that I'm helping introduce medicine to a younger generation. I hope to become a residency program director in the future and continue to be involved in medical education and outreach. All of that is still true. I love you guys, and I'm so grateful for this YouTube channel. All right, carrying on. Pursuing a field in ophthalmology for the last 10 years has taught me many things about myself. I am a student of medicine, led by my ambition, curiosity, and perpetual optimism. I am hardworking and deeply passionate, and I hope that my experiences as a trainee will help me to become a leader in ophthalmology. My career thus far has reinforced the confidence I have in my own initiative and ability to see projects through to completion. Applying now to fellowship, I have many goals. To become an outstanding ophthalmologist and surgeon with the clinical acumen to take care of my patients, to advance the field with new research and technology, and to give back to the new generation of physicians and scientists as an educator. I look forward to the opportunities ahead, and I hope to become a leading voice within the field of ophthalmic plastic and reconstructive surgery. The end. Woo! Okay, I feel like that one was a little bit more mature. It still wasn't the greatest. Like, none of these are like mind-blowing, the best essays you've ever read in your whole life, but I think they're all very acceptable. I think you can see my maturity progress from 2009 when I was writing my med school application to 2013, 12 when I was writing my residency essay to 2017 when I was writing my fellowship. So almost 10 years of growing and becoming a doctor and learning about medicine. And even though I really feel like I'm the same person, I say the same things, I think you can kind of hear my personality coming out in what I write. That is interesting to me, how it stayed pretty consistent over the years, but you can kind of see my goals and my ideas mature as I've progressed. So that was really fun. Actually, they weren't quite as bad as I thought they were going to be. I love to hear what you guys think. Share what your topics are, what you've been writing about in your personal statements. You guys are all so amazing. I've read so many personal statements with incredible stories of your hobbies and your skills and your achievements and your passions and your hardships. I think that you really have to show who you are. At the end of the day, don't be afraid to show who you are, because you're amazing and you are the only you, and that's what makes you special and unique. So share who you are. Don't be afraid to talk about your struggles, but don't dwell on them. If you have struggles, you admit them, you talk about them, you have a mature response and solution, and then you move right along. It's no problem. I think people ask about talking about social media, and you can see that I talked about my YouTube channel in my fellowship application. I think you can talk about really anything, and you just have to show why it's important to you, what you want to do with it, and why it's going to make you a great doctor at the end of the day. So I hope you enjoyed. Thank you so much for watching this video. I'd love it if you would consider subscribing to this channel. I post videos on a bit of an erratic schedule because I am still a trainee, and so if you press that little bell button, you will be notified when I post videos, although I try to post on Mondays. And if you want to follow me on Instagram, we can connect there as well. Thank you guys so much. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Bye!